Hello friends, you are welcome to Literature Simply, simple way to learn literature and language. Friends, this video is going to be very special because this video is not only for students but for teachers also. So, what is this video is about? This video is about learning English through literature. So, how we can learn English through literature will be discussed in the course of this video. So, here let me tell you the title of this video, which is Teaching and Learning English Through Literature. It is one of the best methods for teachers and students to learn English. So let's start the video. We have seen that there are so many approaches, methods and techniques of teaching learning English which are implemented in the Indian classrooms. There is an approach which is called learner-centered approach, which is famous nowadays and gained prominence in the teaching learning process of English in Indian classrooms. But friends, English is not our native language. It is the foreign or second language for us, and because of this we need to understand English, or we need to learn English in that way. The very basic things to learning English is to learn its basic skills. First comes listening, then speaking, then reading and writing. So according to this basic model LSRW, we should follow listening, speaking, reading and writing. But this order may be changed while learning English as a second language or foreign language. So this is the model of learning our mother tongue or our first language. So let's think how this model can be implemented in learning English through literature. Here the emphasis is on learning English through literature. Through literature is very significant. So English literature, why? Because English literature has immense scope and significance in the process of learning English, as we know it already. In almost all Indian universities and colleges, the syllabus or curriculum is based on literature, and they teach us English through literature. It is very basic. How we can integrate these skills in learning English, we are going to discuss here. So here we have very famous Indian model of teaching and learning called Vikram Vltava model. What happens in this model? It is a very simple model. Vltava can be considered as guru and Vikram the pupil. So guru asks questions or frames questions for the pupil, and pupil has to answer his questions for the survival. It is not for getting job or for getting some money or getting some incentives, momentary incentives, but for the survival. In the same way, we have to learn English for the survival. So what is the work of guru or teacher in this scenario? The work of guru or teacher is to frame questions for the pupil, and pupil need to be answer these questions. Here we have a very famous statement made by Carter and Long. Why English literature is significant in learning English language? So this can be understood with this statement. So the statement, let me read it. It is better perhaps that the text should stay with learners for a long period, and that they remember it as one of their favorite poems, plays or novels. So it is very simple. We remember when we read some poem, and when we like a poem, we remember it often and often. So there are some statements from novels or quotations or sentences which we remember all the time, and this is nothing but the interest we showed in that text, and through this kind of activities we can learn English. So again, when we use so many methods in the classroom, we use all these methods teacher centered. For example, here we have a method called lecture method. In this method we teach students, and the involvement of student is very less. Most of the time teachers are interested in over explanation, and they just neglect the students in the classroom. So this method have its drawbacks. So we should turn to other methods like student oriented method, or the methods which we are talking in this video, LSRW, how to integrate these skills in the language acquisition. So a text should be explored with LSRW skills. Means what? Student must be involved in this process of learning, process of teaching. So practicing the skills enhances their ability of understanding, enhances their comprehension. So we should follow these skills: listening, speaking, reading and writing in this way. Again, to confirm this statement, let me read a statement made by Confucius, a Chinese philosopher, what he says about doing the things or practicing the things in the classroom. Let's see. I hear and I forget. I see and I remember. And I do and I understand. So this is the power of practicing the things in the classroom. So here we will take an example and explore this model of teaching learning in the classroom. So here we can take example of any literary work, a novel, a poem, short story, play, anything. Here we will take a short story to explore LSRW skills. The very first here is listening, and listening includes three elements. First is input, which is utterance, then processing. Processing means understanding the utterance and restructuring it into our mind. Then the response. The third here element in the listening is a response. So what is response? Response is nothing but another utterance from the listener. So here we can do some simple things in the classroom in the category of listening. First, relate it to present situation. How short story? For example, if we are talking about Ruskin Bond's Night Train at Devli, so how this story is related to the situation? You can relate it by asking simple but relevant questions to the students, and you can get the response from students in this before starting the short story in this activity. The second thing we have to do in the classroom, read one or two paragraphs as a model or sample for the students or before the students, so that they can understand how to read a short story, how to utter the sentences in the classroom. Then we can divide this short story among students and make them read this story one by one. So in this listening activity, other students or remaining students should be listen it very carefully while the other students are reading. So there should be focused listening of the short story. If you have audio visual version of the short story, you can play it in the classroom in a high volume and make students listen carefully to the short story. After reading short story, we can check their comprehension by asking simple questions on the short story. Then the last thing in the listening category is inspire to speak them. Speak aloud in the classroom. So speaking of the students would be direct result of and response to the listening. Give them proper direction in the course of the entire activity. Then we have here a second skill, that is speaking. So listening and speaking are natural skills which can be developed in the classroom among students, and reading and writing are artificial or the skills which we need to learn through formal education. So here the second skill is speaking. How we can formulate speaking in the classroom while teaching short story? The very first thing we can do in the classroom is take response of the student. So speaking means in the listening activity we have posed some questions before the students and take response in the speaking activity. Appeal and inspire students to speak aloud in the classroom. The second thing we can do here in the speaking activity is form discussion groups of students and make them discuss the story on different levels. For example, we can ask them to discuss the meaning of the story, what is the theme of the story, how many characters are in the story, how story begins, how story ends. So these are different levels, these are different things we can make them discuss in the groups. So then we can do one thing in the classroom which is very significant, I think, or I sometimes practice this thing in the classroom. So arrange 1 minute talk on the story. So tell students, speak 1 minute on the story, whatever they understood, whatever they can know about the short story, and it is significant. Make each student to speak in the classroom. If you have a very large classroom, then make some parts or form some groups and make them speak. So speaking is significant. Next thing we can do, tell students to chat story outside of the classroom. So give them some of the hints or some of the clues to discuss among their. The next thing here we can do, build their confidence by involving them in all the activities in the classroom. So it is significant for the students. Friends, we have discussed two skills, listening and speaking. Now let's move to the third skill, which is reading. So in the category of reading, we can do some things like you can make students read the whole story. First, tell them to read it aloud. If it is not possible in the classroom to read the whole story aloud, tell them to read it at their homes. Then divide the story among students and give some parts to the groups and tell them to read it aloud. Again, form some questions on their first reading and check their understanding. So this is significant. And the third thing here we can do, after aloud reading, tell them to read silently for full comprehension, and now ask the same type of questions which you have asked in the listening activity and before the first reading. So now check the answers or check their ability to speak, how they have answered the questions which you have asked in the before section. Then guide them while reading the story. So it is our duty or duty of a teacher to tell them how to read or how to make sections of the reading. So this activity you can do in the reading section. And here friends, we have last skill or last activity, that is writing. So ask in this writing category, ask students to write their response on the questions that they have responded orally. So we have already asked them some questions and they have given responses to the questions orally. Now you can make them to write these questions in their notebooks so that they can understand, or we can check their understanding, how did they understand the story. Then frame the explanatory or broad questions. So if you have find they have written very good answers, so you can frame the further level questions or explanatory or broad type of questions, like comment on the theme of the story, characterization in the story, sketch the character of protagonist in the story, what is the point of view in the story, or rewrite the story in your own words. So these kind of questions we can give them for homework. And after this writing activity, we can check their answers. It is significant to check the answers, and suggestions are necessary if they make some wrong in the answer. So these skills, listening, speaking, reading and writing, need to be integrated in a whole context. And after integration of these skills while teaching the short story, you can find a very great result of the teaching and learning English language through this literature. So friends, thank you very much for watching the tutorial. If you have anything to share with me, please comment, or if you have a different model than this, you can share this model with me through my email, which I have given in the description. Please like this video, share this video among your friends, and subscribe to Literature Simply, and also press the bell notification icon so that you can get updates on language and literature. Friends, if you want this video in the form of article, please go to website literaturesimply.com, where you can read this article and also download the article.